According to the World Health Organization, just under 4,700 cases of Ebola have been reported in the countries of Guinea, Sierra Leone and Liberia during the latest outbreak. More cases of Ebola have been reported in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and an additional 20 cases were reported in the countries of Nigeria and Spain. The first case confirmed within the United States was in a person who had traveled from West Africa to Dallas and died of the illness. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has advised against all non-essential travel to West African countries while the current Ebola outbreak is ongoing. The CDC and Department of Homeland Security has announced that passengers coming into the United States from Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone and arriving at New York's JFK International, Washington Dulles, Newark, Chicago O'Hare and Atlanta airports will be screened for fever and possible Ebola exposure. An RNA virus that infects wild animals such as monkeys and gorillas as well as humans is responsible for the emerging health threat. According to data produced by the World Health Organization, outbreaks of Ebola began in 1976 in the Democratic Republic of Congo on the Ebola River and Sudan, with later outbreaks in Uganda and other African nations. Fever, headache, body aches, cough, stomach pain, vomiting, and diarrhea are the early signs of Ebola. Such symptoms is also common for a wide variety of other diseases, making it difficult to correctly diagnose Ebola at early stages. The incubation period, the time it takes from exposure to Ebola to developing symptoms, can be anywhere from 2 days to 3 weeks, although most people who have been infected with Ebola will show symptoms within the first 9 days. Within just a few days of the early onset of symptoms, the later symptoms of Ebola can start to present themselves as a result of internal and external bleeding. Such symptoms can include the eyes becoming red, the vomiting of blood, bloody diarrhea, cardiovascular collapse and death. According to statistics provided by the World Health Organization, around 1/2 of all Ebola cases in West Africa has resulted in death during the current outbreak. Due to the close contact with sick patients, health workers often end up contracting Ebola, some of which have already died from the disease. While the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has not yet approved any treatments for Ebola, drugs that are under study have been used to treat 2 American health workers who were infected in Liberia. The drug under study is made by MAP Biopharmaceutical and is known as ZMapp. It has been described as an experimental, antibody-based medication which is produced in plants and has not yet been found to be safe for use in people. Vaccines in development have been effective at preventing Ebola infections in animal studies, and safety testing of new vaccines in people is now underway. Unless you are in direct contact with bodily fluids of someone with Ebola while they have viral symptoms such as fever, vomiting, and cough, you are not at risk of the Ebola infection. To protect the U.S. public health, the CDC is building up their capacity for testing and surveillance and getting infection control information out to health workers. They are also training medical responders, flight crews, and airport workers on how to report a sick passenger to the CDC in case isolation becomes necessary.